the kind of lesson a little bit is that if you keep doing that for me just whilst I kind of is that you were kind of drifting around basically, yeah, which essentially means that you weren't staying in posture. And the reason why you weren't staying in posture is because you weren't staying downward facing enough. So keep swinging up. Yeah, so keep everything very much down. Yes. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So you can kind of then start to feel an increase in pressure. Yes, because basically you're keeping the lower part of your body much more downward facing. I think the other thing that possibly refrained against is you were trying to stay incredibly centered.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I think because you're trying to stay very, very still in the backswing position, that's restricting again how much rotation you can possess. Yeah. But then the problem that you're going to have in any kind of golf swing is that if you can see next to me, just problem with this weather, innit? But if you can stay centered in a golf swing, but it would make you move more this way. And really what we're trying to do is make sure you pressure load that leg.
Yeah.
If you see the way, then it's acceptable to move a bit this way.
Yeah.
And then all we're going to do is just match it up in the transition.
Yeah.
So, you know, generally speaking, what you do is fine, but it's just short, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think, like we said on your first lesson, you know, the big thing that we'll be trying to do is increase distance.
Yeah.
And the way you're going to do that, if you wouldn't mind just keep demonstrating that same swing, is through leverage, isn't it? So by trying to swing your left arm higher up in the air. Yeah. And then trying to match this up in terms of the transitional movement. Now the other interesting thing is that, you know, and I think this will be very, very relatable for obviously today's session at the beginning, but also people on the channel, is like, you know, at the beginning of the lesson I asked you to turn more and you said you couldn't. And then what you can actually realise is that you can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've kind of got to be very careful in terms of how people practice.
Yeah.
And I think very similar to yourself, you kind of would admit that have this natural tendency to hit in quite quick succession.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the problem with that is that you're just ingrained in the same thing all of the time.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. We don't know how long it takes, but the more frequent, the better. And basically the more awareness you can get of the space around you, the more that you do the correct thing.
Yeah.
Problem is when you hit balls, you generally find that you don't. You'll just build awareness of how you've currently always hit the ball, and it makes you less susceptible to change.
Yeah.
So if you show us again, I think what we're kind of, the message out of this lesson today is that, you know, if you exactly keep going. Very good. Widen that stance a little bit more. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Now what I'd probably get you doing is very similar to what I did in Steve's session. So if you kind of just, if you get yourself set up, if you stay there whilst we'll let the rain pass. Got you. There we go. Right, so that's going to be reference the golf ball basically, yeah? So it's going to be what we class as the low point. So if you kind of get set up again and swing up. Yeah. So as you're doing it, so keep turning up now. Exactly. Then let yourself move back over the line.
Right.
So do it again. So start the whole thing again. So swing up. Yeah, and as you turn, see the way I shifted you back?
Yeah.
So as you're still going up, so if you keep doing that for me, yes, very good. Yeah, very good. And then what we can start to see is the way that you would naturally be falling back to control the low point line whilst you're still winding up in the backswing. Yes. Yeah. So if you keep doing that for me, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, and then we can see the way you'd be on top of the golf ball. Now, interestingly, I asked Steve the same question. The weight stays on the right, yes?
It's still on the right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though
you've shifted left. Yeah, and the reason for that is because of the orientation where your body is. So because everything's still pointing down towards the right-hand side, yeah, even though you'll move back over towards that low point line, yes, exactly, it's still on that right-hand side.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is, if we go through the process again, because you were very short in your rotation, so first thing people would do, based upon the mistakes we made, is just go, hang on a second, double check you're not at capacity.
Yeah.
So don't tell yourself the story, just go, oh, actually, could I move any more?
Yeah.
And then from there, then you want to start doing this, which is that sort of, you feel like you're basically still winding up, weight should stay on the trail side, but you're moving your sternum on towards the low point line. Yes.
Yeah.
Now what you do is that you now progress back in towards this sort of exercise in your practice, which can mean that you have more justification to work on it at home. you know, it's like sometimes when we read old, you know, kind of notes that professionals have left, it's not uncommon. So, like, old sayings would be "keep your back to the target."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but the problem with that is that if you kind of swing up to the top and pause for us, and just concentrate just on the backswing, don't worry about the falling in thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
And this is kind of what happens, you see. So yeah, so a lot of the idea of getting back to the target is logical. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is where we've always been, isn't it, as amateur golfers? Now the problem is although you're going to move linearly, if you shift that way,
Yeah.
you're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because your weight moves onto the left.
Yeah.
So now the problem that you're going to have is opening up the hips whilst the weight's on the left is going to be anatomically impossible.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that although all that information is correct about keeping your back to the target, what you're trying to do is, if you set up again, so slowly go back, is we're trying to get you to fall in.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So you're moving, should we say, towards the target, aren't you?
Yeah.
But the weight stays on the right.
Stays on the right.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And then what you do is then, because the weight's on the right, inevitably it'll move left, but in a rotational manner. Yes.
You've got to get that hip
Very
down
good.
facing.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, the only problem is losing that mic. So, you know, like on the videos, I'll talk about this.
Yes.
Well, that's what you kind of want to do a bit of time practicing as well.
Yeah.
Occasionally, but, you know, it's this way and then this way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Not this way and then this way,
Yeah.
which I think is what a lot of people get lost with. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got to turn more, but you've got to try and feel like you're falling into a more central line.